When you start an auxiliary timeline, it always appears on top of the main timeline. The main timeline is playing the images you see up here. So if I would now start this auxiliary timeline, you'll see the turntable showing up on top of the main timeline. Likewise, if I start the robot, that also appears over here. And as long as these are not overlapping, that's not a problem. But what if you start an image that overlaps the other auxiliary timelines? You can see now that this graffiti here is painting over the others. What if you would like to have one of these guys be on top of the graffiti? The way you accomplish that is by taking the auxiliary timeline that you want to be on top and just dragging it to above the where you have the graffiti. For example, if you want to have both these smaller timelines appear on top of the graffiti, you can now start the robot and then you can start the graffiti, and you'll see that the graffiti is painted behind, and also the turntable will appear now on top of the graffiti. So that's the basic way in which you determine the order, the stacking order of auxiliary timelines. However, sometimes you may not know which auxiliary timeline should be on top, and that may be cases where you have multiple timelines that you may want to run, but you don't know which order you are going to run them in. You just want the most recently started timeline to always come out on top. And the way you can do that is that you go in and change a setting in the timeline itself. For example, let's say that we these two timelines, the graffiti and the turntable, we want the one that is most recently started to always be on top. We would go into the graffiti by double-clicking it here, and then change the timeline settings of the graffiti to be always on top, which means that whenever this is started, it will always be on top of anything else shown on stage. Then we can do the same for the turntable. So we have set both these auxiliary timelines to always be on top. Now, if I would start the graffiti, we'll see that it paints over the turntable. Now, if I start the turntable, we'll see that the turntable appears on top of the graffiti. So in this way, whichever is the most recently started auxiliary timeline will be on top. And that's useful for those cases where you have a number of modules that you want to start, but you don't really know which order you want them to start. You just want the most recent one to be appearing on top of whatever was there before.